thanks again for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. And so I thought if we just kick off and you want to just give yourselves a little introduction. Agnes, do you want to start us off and tell us a bit about you?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Agnes. I have been with Circuit for a year now, and I work as a product designer here at Circuit. I'm part of the CFT team, which means Circuit for Teams, which is our product for teams with multiple drivers. So yeah, I'm part of the product design team.
Did you work in a similar kind of company before, or what did you do before?
Yes. So I started my career, my professional journey back in 2015. And I've worked with different companies, different products, but also design agencies. So it was a little bit for both. And this gave me experience in working with different clients, different industries, such as travel, communication, online banking experience, different clients really, but also with products before as well. So
nice.
Bit of both,
yes, a real mix. Yeah. Thank you for that. So what kind of an environment were you in? Were you in an office environment, or did you work remotely then, or what?
So for the most part, I was working in an office. It all changed with the pandemic, really, when we were forced to work remotely. But since then, I've been working remotely. So I used to work in offices before, and I didn't have the opportunity to work remote before, even though it was something that I was looking for already. But I guess it wasn't that common, I would say, before the whole context of the pandemic, of course, at least working with technology, I would say, from the design perspective, it wasn't really common, or at least here in Brazil, where I'm based. But now I've been working remotely for the past 4 years. So it was a shift in my life.
A shift, yeah. And I seem to remember you wanted a remote job, didn't you? That was when you were looking for jobs. You did that, deliberately. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah. Apart from the remote element, what was it that particularly attracted you to working at Circuit? Can you remember what sort of stood out?
Yeah, sure. So at first, the opportunity to work remotely, I knew that. So just to give more context, because of the context that we were living in back in 2020, we were working remotely, but then we knew that we were going back to the office sometimes. That was something that I was already looking for, an opportunity to actually work remote, knowing that I don't need to, go back to the office or anything. I really wanted to keep working remotely because that was really working for me in terms of balancing my professional and personal life and managing my time better. That's what I'm trying to say. And so when I read about Circuit, I read about the opportunity to work on a smaller team and having the freedom to manage my time more efficiently. I don't know how to say that word.
Yeah, no, you said it right. Yeah, efficiently.
I was also really excited to see the user engagement with a product when I first read about Circuit. That was something that really caught my attention as a designer, because I was really interested in learning more about how the company takes those feedbacks and use that to improve the features, to improve the product. I was really interested in having the opportunity to really talk to users, see them using the product. That's simple as that, as a designer, that really caught my attention. Of course, when I read about not having daily meetings, that really, that was a big part of it, why I was so interested in Circuit when I first read about it. Overall, I can say that everything about the company and the culture and the values that really clicked with me, with what I believe.
Thanks very much. So Gonza, would you want to tell us a bit about same as Agnes? Give a bit of an introduction.
For sure. So, of course, my name is Gonza. I've been here for 2 months now, a bit less than 2 months, if I remember correctly. What do? I joined Circuit as a staff web engineer for the CMS team, which is confusingly CMS stands for Circuit Marketing Site, which is kind of confusing overall. We also have a lot of relationship with our CMS. So what do I used to do? Before this job, I was an engineer manager, let's say for a large corporate company with roughly 2,000 employees and over almost 300 software engineers. I was leading a team of 8 engineers before joining as an individual contributor here, which is a very drastic change probably from what I was doing. The follow-up would be what attracted me. I would say, just to answer shortly, the culture. The remote part for me was, I'm interested in remote jobs, but I'm also open to go to the office, maybe not every day. My experience varies a lot because I was a freelancer for 7 years, so I was working from home even before the pandemic and all of that. And then I ended up hating that because I was basically alone for a very, very long time. And I got an opportunity. I joined to a startup and I ended up going to the office every day for 5 years, or roughly 4 before the
Went from
pandemic.
one extreme to the other then, really.
That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But then pandemic event and all of that, I ended up staying a lot. I had my own team. I was leading my own team back then. So we decided to kind of accept that change at the beginning through the whole COVID crisis. And then we never fully came back on engineering in that company. We were going to the office, let's say 1 to 2 days a week, depending on the projects we were doing. And then I changed jobs again to a big kind of like staff augmentation agency, and I was working fully remotely from Buenos Aires, and I never looked back ever since. I've been working remotely on all of my positions, maybe like what corporate companies call hybrid, meaning that I was remotely, but I live in Valencia. My office was in Barca. I was traveling to Barca, to Amsterdam, or to London every 3 weeks or so. I was traveling somewhere, but I was mostly working remotely, which was also one of the things that got me very interested about Circuit, because although the company, my contract was fully remote, a lot of the people I was working with was going to the office twice a week or something along those lines. And at the beginning it was fine, but through time, it kind of feels weird, like you don't fully belong because you're here in your own office and everyone else is together in London or Amsterdam or whatever. You're like it feels weird, right? Like that there's like certainly a gap.
Yeah, absolutely feel that. I think from a business perspective, and having worked in completely on-site, hybrid, and now fully remote, I think the hardest thing to manage culturally is the hybrid environment. It's like if someone gets that right, I think they could make a fortune out of selling that as a culture model, because I have not seen it or heard. I talked to a lot of people, candidates and things. I've not heard of many places any places that do it exceptionally well, and that there's quite often a divide or communication issues. Or
I absolutely agree. I would say, adding up on top of that, also the culture was very different, and that's also one of the biggest things that attract me about Circuit, which is I was okay with my meetings overall, but after a year or so, I was having, let's say, 5 to 6 hours a day of meetings, like a manager, that type of setting. I love meetings in general, but I enjoy presenting and leading meetings. I hate the typical corporate, let's call it BS, of standing for a whole hour in a meeting where you barely get the context, or you don't really care about like 50 minutes of that one, but you need to be there nodding. Those ones I don't like. Yeah. But the creative ones, the team building ones, the ones that as a manager you lead, those ones I actually really enjoy, doing retrospectives, dailies, those kind of things. But the, I don't know, quarterly goals or business targets, or these kind of ones are kind of boring, to be honest. What got me very interested is thinking about how would it feel to go all the way to no meetings after all of these years, right? That was like the first thought of, can you actually do it? How would it be? And I remember reading about the culture. It was like, how the hell do they do this? I still remember that moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting that, that's really like both such a key thing for both of you. And it's such a big part of our culture, isn't it? It's such a huge part. And it is the knock-on effect of that, I think, has positives and negatives. I think, there always are trade-offs. Yeah, it's interesting and great thing that it attracted you both, because obviously if it's something that appeals to you, the likelihood is that you're going to find it a more comfortable move than someone who needs that kind of interaction, those sort of. Yeah. I mean, nobody likes a boring meeting, obviously. Who does? Nobody does. But some people do enjoy the things that you get from meetings. So how many meetings would you have in a week, Agnes? Like 1 or 2, do you think, at the moment?
In a week? Weekly? 1. Yeah. The design team has 1 design sync meeting, which is where we can, share progress or some projects that we are working on and gather feedback.
Yeah, wow. What about you, Gonza? How many of you?
Mostly the same. Either I have like bi-weeklies with my manager, or 1 week is Demo Friday, the other week is maybe the monthly meeting, but maybe an hour a week.
Yeah, it's a big change from 5 a day to 1 hour a week. That's crazy. But yeah.
Yes, the first week was kind of weird. I didn't even know how to start. Because it was like, okay, normally my week was like, okay, first round of meetings through the morning until kind of 11 a.m. And then I have 2 hours to do all of the things before the next round starts. And it felt, I think there's something to share. It felt very weird at the beginning because, when you're starting uni or new responsibilities, they have a lot of time and you kind of procrastinate a lot because you don't really know how to handle all of that extra time, right? When you're used to only have like 1.5 hours to 2 hours, it's like either I do it right now or I won't do it ever, right? Like, because you can see your diary. But the beginning was, how do I start? Right? I need to onboard to this. But
when you first joined Circuit, you mean that? Yeah.
There's no meetings. It's like, well, how do I prioritize my time? What do I do with all of this, right? Like, I was not used to have so much time after kind of 4 or 5 years of kind of being managing a team and having so many meetings. It was weird.
Yeah, I expect very early on as well, when you first join a company, it's quite common to have a lot of things in your calendar, isn't it, or in your diary? A lot of introductory meetings, a lot of like maybe networking or all sorts of that kind of thing. It's normally a really heavy and quite draining couple of weeks, isn't it, when you start with a new company, because there's so much. I'm not saying it's not draining when you join Circuit, because I think there's still such a lot to take in. I think it does make you. It's hard. Changing jobs is hard. It's just, there's no getting away from it. It's a big life event. But yeah, I guess it's not just the getting used to that, but maybe the sort of feeling a bit like, well, now what? I know that's how I felt. I was a bit kind of like, oh, is somebody gonna, give me a list to get me started, or do I just like, what do I do? Yeah, it was very very different situation. Agnes, you were nodding quite a lot then when Gonza was speaking. How did if you can remember back to a year ago, how did it feel for you when you those first couple of weeks? How did that feel for you?
Yeah, so I relate to that as well. I felt the same way, but I must say, for me personally, because I was working remote already from my past job, that was helpful for me in a sense that I knew what to expect in a way, but definitely working at Circuit is very different. So in the aspect of, I have all this free time, what do I do with this now that I'm just starting? Where do I go? I can definitely relate to that as well. So I had someone from the design team to guide me, and the operations team was always there as well, very supportive. So it was really helpful for me. I didn't felt super lost. That's what I'm trying to say, because from the beginning, at least from my experience with the design team, I joined a project very early, and I was able to see all of the things that I read about Circuit. I was able to see that they were in fact true. Working in my first project from the beginning, so it was a little bit different. But I must say, looking at my calendar, not seeing like any meetings, it was kind of like, okay, what now? Who do I talk to? Because then there's this gap between, so people were coming to me, introducing themselves and scheduling this meetings to get to know each other. But what do I do in between these things? What do I do? Who do I talk to? So I definitely felt a little bit like that as well. I wasn't super lost, because I think it was very quick, I would say, so to people come to me and introducing themselves and talking to people, it was really quick. And it was really helpful to have someone guiding me as well, because I was already like chatting with people. That's I was already okay. Let me ask you this and this and that. It was a little bit different, I would say.
Yeah. So whilst we are async and we tend to, our default option is to not have meetings. I think that's a very different scenario in those first couple of weeks, isn't it? And I don't think it's a different reason for having a meeting as opposed to let's get this job done. We're not having a meeting to get this job done. We're just having meetings to get to know one another so that we know who to contact through Twist or who to send that loom to or whatever. So I think there's absolutely no getting away from the fact that you need to meet people and speak to them. And it is a great time to do that early on when you have got the time. There's a few people in the team who are really great at reaching out, but I think the onus is also on the new person to reach out to people and think, right, who do I want to speak to here? Who's important for me to meet and speak to? Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So was there, you said it was as you expected when you joined Agnes, so just following on for that, was there anything that actually surprised you?
It was. I must say I was a bit, skeptical at first because I couldn't really believe that this system works. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I was already working remote, for example, and in reality, it wasn't like that at all. I didn't have much autonomy as I do now with my time, with managing my tasks, or having ownership of the projects that I'm working on. That wasn't really happening before. So when I read about Circuit and the way that people work here, I was okay. Let me see. And so I was really happy when I joined, but I was a little bit okay. Let me see if this is true.
Yeah.
I was expecting that the no meetings and the autonomy that we have, and because we have a lot of freedom, but also a lot of responsibility. I was just I was waiting to see if all of the things that I read that was really nice was really was the reality, and it is. So I was really surprised to see that in a good way, in a very good way.
That's good. That's really good. And I guess same question for you, Gonza. Were there any? Well, I know it's only a couple of months in, but is there anything about it that surprised you so far?
That's a great one. I would say I definitely can relate to everything that Agnes said. I'm Argentinian and I'm very cynical even for an Argentinian standard. So I never really believe what company says. And I think I said this to you on the interview process. I think I made jokes about this. I work in so many companies in so many settings and as a freelancer for so many clients. I'm just so used to, whatever. I don't really kind of take all of your words. I'm like, well, it sounds interesting. I'm gonna check once I'm in because I know that I cannot get all of that reality without joining. What was I surprised? Well, one of the things that surprised me that probably a lot of people don't have a look at is the fact that the public handbook is almost the handbook, right? And this is not always true for the. Yeah, it's pretty much 101, right? So maybe it's something that can fly under the radar of a lot of people, but that tells a lot about the culture. The fact that the handbook is kind of the public handbook, because when I read that through Notion, I was like, well, yes, they have a public version of this, and then they have the version of this, right? And I was expecting to find the gaps once I joined. I was like, it's kind of like,
I think the only difference really is we don't go into like the granular detail. It's kind of more of a headline than a
like all of the payment details or bank accounting or all of that bureaucracy things, right?
Administrative side of it,
Indeed, I would say. That was one of the things that surprised me. I was expecting the no meetings, but still, well, at the beginning, first 3-4 days was like a lot, like 3-4 meetings every day, meeting the people, exactly like Agnes said. And then it was normally engineers, you have a lot of time that you need to do all of the setups and mess up and like figure out how to install all of the things and make your local environment work. First 2 days, and it was like, okay, here's your project. And I was like, okay, I'm used to have, how to put it, ownership, but even as a manager working in corporate environments, you never have true autonomy, which are two very different things, right? You're entitled to make all of these decisions within this box, right? That's ownership, let's say. Here it was more like, just as an example, my first project was improve the page speed. There you go. That's your project, right? And how, what angle, what are the priorities, what's the limit of this? It's like, well, that's autonomy, right? Like you figure out, you have enough scenario to do this. That was probably one of the I would say kind of expected, but at the same time, kind of surprised moments of, okay, it is what they promise to be, right? Like that aha moment was that, like, okay, cool. Let's keep pushing, right? That was very cool. I think that those were the two biggest things of, I was expecting that from one end, but at the other side, I was like, okay, I'm a bit cynical. So it was like,
Sure.
okay, it looks real now.
Yeah, I
And I
guess
think,
a lot of people must feel like that. I mean, I guess it's almost that it's too good to be true thing. Like, this sounds great.
Yeah.
And so many companies are brilliant. Their employer brand is so good at reflecting what they want to be rather than what they are. Or, you know, that's probably really super critical of other businesses, but they're probably like almost like caricature versions of what they actually are. Like, those things, that elements are exaggerated, or and I think it's easy to do. It's easy to get carried away, even, you know, for me. It's easy to get carried away, and because your job is to attract people and you want them to come and work for you. But if that expectation versus reality, if that isn't right, it will only lead in the people that join the team not being the right people, because they're looking for what you're talking about, and if that does, then they're just not going to be happy. And, you know, and that doesn't necessarily lead to people leaving, but it just might lead to them not being their best selves, not being happy, not you know. So it's not a win situation for anyone. So that's why I was really interested. It sounds like, you know, it's been positive for both of you, but I am also interested to hear what the challenges are of joining a company like Circuit, which is, it's not completely unique, but I think it has a combination of different things that make it really quite different from most of the companies. So what for you do you think, and either of you, like, throw this open to either of you, what do you think has been maybe the biggest challenge of you of those early days, and you know, low points? What's been the, whether that was 2 weeks in or 6 months in, Agnes or Gonza, whether you've, you know, same to you really.
maybe I can start because I have like all of these fresh memories because I just joined, and then Agnes, you can follow after.
Yeah,
I would say there's one that's very personal that has to do with who I am and what I like to do, and there's another one that is mostly about the culture. But I was mostly prepared. So I would say the async part was not the remote part. The async part feels a bit lonely, and I think that there's a lot of material about this, and we're quite open in a lot of the documents. But I think that everyone processed this a bit different. I would say this didn't surprise me at all because, as I said, I worked remotely for a long time in different scenarios. And one of the reasons why I decided to move from my house to the office every day when I started working for that startup years ago is because of that. It's because I worked from my home roughly 6-7 years, and I was feeling quite lonely already because everyone was in the office. I was the only one doing engineering in that company. I've been dealing with all of my clients for years. So I was prepared for this. And also one of the reasons I had so much trouble back then is because I didn't have a dedicated space for my office, which basically I worked from my own bedroom because I was sharing bed, but different story, different life back then. So I didn't have enough money to have an extra office space, right?
Sure.
And I learned the hard way how depressing can that be. So I was very prepared to the fact that async work could be very good, but I knew basically that I will feel lonely. That's good because also with my story as an expat and living here in Valencia for a bit of like over a year, I'm doing a lot of other things after, right? Like I'm going to meetups or dev engineering meetups or playing paddle or connecting with the local community because I was already working remotely. But still, through the day, one of the things that I felt on the first weeks, especially because I joined right before Christmas, so like half of the company, we're already a small company, but half of the company and the whole team was basically on vacation. So I was really lonely in the sense that not even chatting with anyone for the first week or so. Still, it felt a bit lonely. I was prepared for it, but it still was like, okay, realization time. I'm listening to music for 6 hours straight, and am I doing the right thing? I start to got that like kind of insecurity moments because the lack of feedback or even interactions. I would say dailies to me were great for because of that. When you join a new company and you start like, hey, I've been doing this or that, and people kind of get a sense of how fast or slow you go. You see the reactions, you get that kind of positive reinforcement that you're doing the right thing. I mean, we all struggle with imposter syndrome, right? I would say async was kind of like that loneliness plus joining a totally different culture at the beginning was kind of am I doing the right thing? I think I am, but at this, we're all insecure in somewhere or another, right? Like that was, I would say, the biggest personal struggle through those first days. And the second one, which is very personal, is despite being an engineer, I'm a people person. And I really enjoyed mentoring, which was probably the best thing of my previous job, was the fact that as I was leading such a variety of personalities, different cultures, different people, different backgrounds, I really enjoyed the one what's of like, how's your life going? The personal part, not about like the job itself. Like
Yeah, not status update, more of a human side.
Yeah, I never use dailies for that. I never use one-on-ones for that. I always use stand-up, and for me, always as a manager, one-on-one with someone was, how's life? What's in your mind? Right. That's always my first question is, what's in your mind? And then if you want to talk about work, let's talk about work. I really enjoyed that part. It's clear that the trade-off was not worth it for me. I was looking for a change, right? But still, that you never know what you have until you miss it, kind of thing, right? So that was the second thing of like, hey, I really enjoyed all of this trade-off, but still, that there's a piece here that's
your
kind of
sacrifice. Yeah,
but that's very personal.
Yeah. Do you see a way of getting that kick either at circuit or outside of circuit in a different way, or?
Asynchronous is a bit different also because people are mostly here, so I don't feel like I can mentor most of the people here. Maybe I can give an advice or not, but it's very different. You cannot really mentor someone to grow when it's at your level unless they're really open about like, hey, I think that you can help me. But I still mentor a lot of people that I met through the years, that I train and that I hire in that company. So what I started to do was like reaching out, essentially. Hey, I changed jobs. I have a lot more time now. Instead of 6 hours, I have none. So if you want to hang out, just let me know, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I actually chat about with a lot of people that I trained when they were juniors, and I found that they were seniors already or working in different companies, and they were still looking for advice. It's not exactly the same thing, but I'm connecting to the local community, and I'm also reaching out to old connections. That's kind of working for me.
What about for you, Agnes? What was your challenge, or what any particular challenges or low points maybe in those early days?
Yeah, I feel basically the same in terms of working, remote work, sometimes it feels isolating for sure. It was something that I was already expecting as well. So I was kind of prepared for this, I would say, but it definitely felt, at times it felt alone. So one thing, for example, I think the company is aware of that, like people at the company is aware of that. And this is why we have different initiatives such as like the online meetings to get to know each other and to just talk and like
social events.
Yeah, social connection. Yeah. Even then I was a bit nervous because I don't know anyone. I never met these people. So how can I just join the call? So I was a bit nervous of that as well. Even though the purpose is social connection, it was very different. And I must say, for example, the culture. So this is totally personal, but being Brazilian, the culture is very different as well. I used to rely on work to make friends mostly, because this is where I was spending most of my time a day. So I have a lot of friends from work to this day. And I honestly believe that this is something culture in Brazil as well. Talking to my Brazilian friends, we talked about this all the time. I was a bit nervous, even though I was expecting to feel a bit alone sometimes. How can I say it? Like, circuit is not like a cold place or environment, but I didn't know that because I don't know people. I had to wait to people reaching out to me to connect with me in a way, because as someone new in the company, I wasn't sure if who do I speak to? Who do I talk to? Now I have friends in different areas. We talked about all the different things all the time, but I didn't know this back then. And so even to join social events that we have at Circuit, I was a bit nervous at first because how would I do this? I don't know these people. Will I have to introduce myself in this call? I'm not sure. It's a call to talk about, I don't know, a movie. how do I join? What movies? I don't know. So I was a bit nervous about that as well. And of course, I felt a bit alone sometimes. I would say that this was, even though I was prepared for that, it's never an easy thing to feel isolated. And of course, as Gonza said, the feedback part, because you have such autonomy with the projects that you are working on, you don't have to expect feedback on everything, every small thing. This is not the way that we work, meaning that what I mean by that is managing, basically like micromanaging. That doesn't exist at Circuit. And it's not that I was expecting this, but I felt the same sometimes because of I wasn't showing what I'm doing for the team like daily, like in a daily meeting. I was like, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Are the team
very similar? It's very similar to you then, Gonza. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, does the team have visibility of that or no? Yeah. So that was it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And just like from my aspects, I worked in a hybrid role before. I hadn't worked fully remotely. I did it for a little while during the pandemic, but not for long. So I had no experience of working remotely. So it was a huge culture shock for me, like really different. I wanted to work remotely so much, like it was everything to me at that point. I'd got to a point in the career where my career, I've had sort of two careers, and the first half of my career was extremely sociable. I worked in hospitality, where I was almost 15 hours a day working with people, and then moved into a people HR career where, again, working with people all the time. So to me, I kind of felt exhausted by that, and I felt like I needed to not be in an office environment with people. I was really looking forward to just having a break from that. But what I didn't anticipate was that actually that you do hit a point where you miss that social interaction. And because I'd always got my social kicks through work, and I would spend my weekends at home, I was still at home at the weekends, and I wasn't getting that anywhere. Like I wasn't, but it took me such a long time to realise that if I went out and made some more effort to see my friends, like my actual friends rather than work friends, that would scratch that itch. It says, like, I don't know, British saying, but, and it really did help me a lot. But it took me, like, I can't even tell you how long it took me to figure that out. And I think I started to do it subconsciously before I realised that it was, this is what was making me, like, it was, just feel lonely. And I didn't realise that's what I was, which is like a bit strange thing to go through. And again, with the, going back to what you said, Gonza, with having like, and you said, Agnes, as well, with that feedback of knowing, am I doing the right thing? With all this autonomy, am I going in the right direction? It's even more so for me because I'm the only person that does what I do. So I don't really have a team to work with. So it was just not there at all, apart from Jack, who I was reporting into, and who I meet with. It was once a week initially, but then once a month, and that's it. So my meetings are once a month with Jack, unless one of us is on holiday or something that is every other month. So, and that happens like more than you would imagine. So not getting that feedback was really hard for me, particularly in the first 6 months, I would say, because I just didn't know really, like, was I doing a good job? Is everyone happy with what I'm doing? So I had to figure out a way of getting that feedback without just waiting for somebody to tell me. And because we're asynchronous, those conversations don't happen naturally. Like, you're not just stood next to somebody in a room and they go, nice job, by the way. So that doesn't happen. Or you don't overhear someone talking about things. So you don't absorb that feedback. So I had to go and find it. I had to ask for it. And then when I started to get it, it was reassuring, and also it gave me there's something really nice about asynchronous communication in terms of how thoughtful it is and how honest it is. You don't, particularly at Circuit, it doesn't get so sugar-coated, but that's a constructive thing. So it's kind of like, it's actually more helpful that I don't need somebody to tell me constantly. You don't need someone to tell you this is amazing. You want to know, well, this is great, but like this might have made it better. And I think in the asynchronous communication, that seems to be more prevalent than it is in natural conversation, particularly in, maybe this is a cultural thing, British culture. People tend to be awfully polite and not wanting to hurt people's feelings. I say that, it's normally just passive aggressive, but or it can be. But that I just hadn't experienced that way of working before. And actually, at first, I did find it a little bit. That was to the point. So that was an adjustment as well for me. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that play into that, but I think for me it was probably, I'll be honest, 6 months point when a kind of light bulb went off in my head and a few things just fell into place, and I was like, I get it now, and then I started to really enjoy it. And then we had a company on site, so I'd been with the company about 6 months when we had the company on site, and that changed everything. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I can say the same. Yeah, and totally say the same.
And what do you think the adjustment period was for you, Agnes? How long did it take you to be?
I would say 6 months too. Yeah, probably. Maybe a little less because of the context of the design team. I think that was helpful because we had to interact more. That's what I'm trying to say. So that was really helpful. But yeah, it took me a few months for sure. Yeah, I don't know if 6 months exactly, but I would say around that really. But because I'm considering also being comfortable with the projects that I was working on. So it's not just the social connection, but also, the way that you present your work and talk about ideas and talk with developers, for example. So that took me, in a general context, I would say that took me a few months for sure. Yeah, to be really comfortable with the way that we work and connecting with people, especially in different areas, like the developers, with other teams. That took me a few months, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. What about? I mean, Gonza, do you think that you're there yet? Do you think you're still sort of settling in and scaling up, or?
Well, I was actually thinking while we were talking about this that I think I had a few of these cultural shocks in the first 2 to 3 weeks, and I felt pretty settled in. But if there's something that I've learned through the years and the experience of onboarding is I'm only going to be able to answer that in 6 months, right? Because it makes sense once you reflect back, right? Like at the moment, I feel like I got it, right? Like I'm settled in. And then in 3 months, you're like, no, shit, I didn't got anything.
You didn't get it yet. You don't know what you don't know, right?
No, exactly. But I can definitely, I had a lot of, since you raised it already, I'm going to say it. I thought this is a pretty honest and direct company to be for a British company standard. And you said it already. Because when I started to see the way Jack, for example, gives not even feedback, like just comments, right? Like straight to the point. So unusual also coming from British people. You also did the same on my interview. So okay, straight answer coming from a British. That's interesting. I think I also highlighted this on our interview, which is it's very different, right? It's so unusual. I think I had a blast adapting to the way we communicate and a lot because also I've been managing and presenting for years now, and I'm so used to how to put it. I have to translate technical complexity into simple terms from non-technical people. That here, for what's the standard, we even communicate highly technical, which I think that's also kind of the other side of why Agnes said a lot of dealing with engineers in some sort of way or trying to understand or speak the same language. At least on my experiences, I've always, one of the roles that I always had to cover was like being this kind of translator, right? Like speaking the designer language, speaking the product language, speaking the business language. That's kind of like a manager thing. And here's like, hey, here's my update, technical, non-technical design, whatever, you deal with it. To me, it's like, oh, even less work, right? I've been kind of trying to figure out how can I present this in a way that is attractive to all of these business people, right? Because I need to talk about page speed, for example. So I've been doing that job. For me, actually, the fact that I can take an extra time, or it's okay to spend a whole morning or even a day and saying, hey, I finished a massive project. Let's take the day to sip a cup of coffee, do a very good async update, then record a little on top of it. So make sure that everyone, whatever sees this thread, is able to understand why do we do all of these things. To me, is so much better than the fact that, I was so used to literally, you have 15-minute slot to present this thing. What do you mean? Like 6-month project, 10 people working on this, right? 15-minute slot. Yeah, but that's the monthly demo, right? Like you need to fit it into 15 minutes, right? How the hell? And I have a day to prepare this. So for me, that part of like adapting to the culture, the presentation, the async way was like nice. I really enjoy that because I can be so much thorough and invest the time in the things that I want to highlight And then if you don't want to read that, just scroll through, right? Like if I spend like a massive amount of text explaining the technical topics and you're a designer and TLDR, this, and you can move, right? Like I really enjoy that kind of approach to comms.
Yeah. So a question for you, Agnes, if you could, well, I'll ask you in a second the same question, Gonza, but if you could go back and tell yourself something, like when you were having maybe in your first few weeks or early times when you were thinking, oh, is there something that you'd go back and a bit of advice you'd give yourself?
Yeah, I would say just relax. Everybody is there to help you. It's okay to reach out to people. Everyone is super friendly. So something that you said, just to give more context here, that really I felt the same way, is the on-site event that we had, where we had the opportunity to meet everybody in person, helped so much in feeling comfortable with, everyone. You will see that sometimes you feel insecure about something and you don't really talk about it because you don't think that's appropriate or that's not the place, because we work with such high skilled, I don't know if that's a word, like great, amazing professionals, that sometimes you forget that everybody has insecurities. It's okay to be insecure. It's okay to make mistakes. Just talk to people. It's okay. Don't be afraid to talk to people. No one is judging you. This is something that I actually have to tell myself every day. I think it's human. It's not something about Circuit or not, especially working with great professionals like this. You want to deliver your best work. It's okay if sometimes, you're not in a good day. It's totally fine. No one is going to judge. So I would say to myself, just relax. In this sense, you are with friends. Everybody, it's nice. It's friendly. We are all humans, not machines. It's okay. Circuit is not expecting you to be a machine, so don't think about it.
Yeah.
Even though we're working remotely and not really talking to people that much at first, I would say to myself, just relax. No one is expecting nothing from you in the sense, of being a machine or anything like that.
It's interesting you said that. I was making some notes here about this recording. And one of the things I was kind of writing as if I was going to be posting it somewhere. And one of the things that I wrote here was that the adjustment period in any new job, not just here, but probably quite extra so in here, it can be a roller coaster. It's almost a classic. You join a team, it's all great, meet everyone, it's amazing, and then, oh my God, like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, and did I make the right choice, and actually it's okay, and everyone seems really nice, but then, I think I messed up here, and that's just such a normal kind of, and particularly when you're on your own, and you're not, you're not just bumping into somebody when you're feeling a bit low, and then getting that off your chest, you're kind of holding those things. But then I also wrote, but that's okay. It's perfectly normal. We're all human. We have emotions, and this stuff happens to everybody.
Exactly.
So just relax, I think.
Yeah, just relax. Yeah. There's so much that I think there's, high expectations that we put on ourselves. It's a personal thing, really. It's a personal journey, I would say. So yeah. But here you do have support on these topics, which is amazing. So yeah.
It's a really good answer. Thanks, Agnes. And what about you, Gonza? As I say, I know it's only a couple of months in, but is there anything that you've learned already that you'd say to your 1 week in self?
I would say I can definitely relate a lot with what Agnes said, but I think this has always been my experience. I mean, like, and this is something I say to all the people I mentor and try to guide, because when I met directors, CTOs, CEOs that I had the privilege to either consult for or have relationships because of work, they still, they take a new project and they have imposter syndrome. You can see it, right? And these people have been working on that for 20, 30 years, and they're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, right? So I realized a couple of years ago, maybe, that the feeling is never going to go away. It's not about the feeling, it's what you do with it. So I know that even if I'm highly qualified for a job or something, because I've been through this over and over, I know how I'm gonna feel. It's not about that. So in that sense, I didn't really learn anything new. But one of the things that really shocked me a bit was this part, which was kind of those micro interactions where you get like not a feedback, but a reaction. And I one of those days, I mean, like, I started early on. I onboarded very, very fast because I'm quite obsessive, and this is like a go at your own pace. So even before the first day, I had already finished all of my setup because on Sunday I was playing by my computer and install all of the things. So I was kind of ready for that, right? So I jumped into the first day, first project kind of thing, and it started delivering value. And I think that by week 2 or something, I found a blocker. And I've been blocked for a day and a half with some technical thing, and I couldn't make the project work. And Peter was not around, my manager, and most of the people was on vacation. It was like it's been a day and a half. I haven't been reporting. This kind of feeling of weekly reporting after so many years of both managing and reporting up and down, right? On the almost daily, this guy's blocked. This is happening. This is risk here, risk that, right? Especially as a manager, right? Like if you're constantly managing risk more than value, it was like, well, do I report this? Is it fine that I've been a day block and I'm still kind of going in circles without finding my way? There's no one with domain knowledge to help me out here. Although I knew how to deal with that insecurity, it kind of shocked me, the fact that I'm stuck. I've been stuck for a day and a half. And I remember, I think it was like this for a day and a half, and then I have a chat with Victor, my manager, and it was like, look, I am blocked. I'm a blocker. I know how to keep on going. I have this feeling, and then I share. It's like I haven't told anyone. Last time that I shared what I've been doing is on Friday. It's Thursday next week. What's going on here? It's like, well, we hire you for a reason. Just let us know when you finish. It's like, what an interesting answer. I wasn't expecting that. So I think relax is a good summary, as Agnes said. I just wanted to share the story because I think many people can relate to this kind of stories more than the words itself, right? But I think it's very true that people is very nice. People know what it feels like because we all been through this experience more or less. Depending on your background and past experience, it can be an easier or smoother ride. But overall, I think that the general thing is, as soon as you have that insecurity or that moment where you're struggling, the main difference is you need to deal with that alone. And normally in an office setting, you can kind of share that or chit chat or do it in a different way. And you're like, hey, we all been through this. Don't worry. Grab a coffee, keep on going. You're missing that kind of thing. And maybe that thing comes in maybe a week or whenever you have the one or that time to actually chat with someone. And then you're like, oh, I've been stressing about this for a whole week. And it was just nonsense.
Yeah.
I think that's the general learning of like, yeah, it's gonna happen. No stress. People trust you in that sense. You don't need to kind of micro share anything or everything you're doing.
Yeah, no, completely. So, and I mean, this might be, I don't know if I'm just rephrasing the same question, putting it from a different angle, but is there anything that you would, if someone new to join the team, is there anything that you'd like to add to that you might want to pass on? Or is that I don't know if I'm just asking the same question twice there, really. Talking to your old self, or whether it's somebody new. Any tips or advice, or maybe practical, rather than you're going to feel like this, because I guess everyone feels differently, but are there any sort of practical tips you can offer or think of that sort of would help them?
Yeah, something that Gonza said that really stuck with me is the trust aspect of it. It is a trust-based relationship, I would say, with between us and the company. And I would say for anyone that's joining, as I said, like I'm also repeating myself, it's okay to feel insecure, of course, but there's a reason why you are here. The company really trusts you and your skills and your instincts. So that's something that really, I don't know, when Gonza was talking about it, it really stuck with me, because I would say, yes, that's totally it. You don't need to show proof of everything because it's a trust-based relationship.
Yeah,
it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. You don't need to justify, your justify anything that much or show proof of anything that much. It's okay. It's okay to have those conversations, to have a close relationship with your manager. It's something that you have to adapt for sure at working at Circuit, but it's really nice, in general. It's like people are really amazing. I would say. Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question really. I was just thinking about the trust. Yeah, the trust point.
Anything you wanted to add, Gonza? Before we close
It's hard to add anything. Yeah, maybe to close up. It's hard to add anything on top of what Agnes said. I think we've been going in circles around the same kind of topic. I would, not to myself, because I like to make jokes everywhere I go, and that's my personality, but I would say especially here, have fun would be a very good advice. Which is on the back of also don't stress that much. Is you already been through it, and I think I said this to many people and to myself all of the time, is they already hire you, right? Like you're already in. Don't try to prove anything, just have fun and do the job. And especially here within the culture and within the people actually have fun. I would say all of the people I've met so far actually love what they do, right? That's not so common on all jobs. Maybe it's something to highlight, but that's a side note. Is just enjoy, have fun, enjoy what you're doing, share the fun, use a couple of GIFs or whatever is your taste or emojis or whatever. It's not the typical corporate setting where you need to follow like a guidebook to communicate, or this is the way we do this, or this is the way that we that. This is not process oriented. So just have fun, enjoy. I think that's one of the most positive feedbacks I've got from the people that start to meet me after seeing my updates. It's like, oh, I just do a lot of GIF and a lot of emojis and jokes in the middle of presentations, but that's me. I've always been communicating like that. And I realized that people really enjoy that. It's like, oh, he's actually having fun while also delivering value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think trust yourself, trust other people as well. Like Agnes said, we've sort of got some really talented people work here, and they're so smart and so nice. And they're so great to work with. It can be pressure, but it's also a lovely thing. And they're great people to bounce off of. Just trust yourself and trust that you've been hired because you're great at what you do. And don't doubt your own instincts, your gut feelings. You don't have to back everything up with a bunch of data and research. We know you know your job. You know what you're doing. Just go and do it. Sometimes that can be a hard thing to adjust to as well, knowing that you don't have to. People are trusting you to do your best work. And you have a great environment to do your best work because you're not in meetings. You're not in 5 hours of meetings or a week or a day, So I think that's for me, that's one of the. Well, I see that in everyone in the team. I see everyone behaving like that, and I see that those qualities coming through in everyone. And I think it's really cool. But yeah. Well, thank you so much. That was great, and it was really interesting for me to hear how it felt for you. It's so interesting that we all felt the same way about a lot of things. Maybe slightly different variation. I mean, we're all very different people as well. So I think the fact that we all went through a similar thing is really insightful.